Hello, folks. You are now listening to the Peter and Jake Talks Central podcast thingy. And you're listening to Peter, and this is Peter Talks Wrestling with. Every Friday I try to have a discussion with a someone on Twitter, someone on YouTube, this, that, and the fourth. And this week I have a special guest. He goes by the name of Jeff Schlegel, a.k.a. the Schlegdaddy of OTRS Central, that is Off the Rope Show Central, and also Schlegdaddy TV. OTRS, he reviews and talks wrestling and does reviews and such. And Schlegdaddy TV, he, in his infinite wisdom, cover the world of sports and mostly football. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is our second go around, if I was to actually put that out there to the listeners. You're a very patient man. Thank you for dealing with this shenanigans.
What shenanigans are you referencing? This is the first crack. Everything is perfect. Absolutely no audio, visual, or technical issues whatsoever. I'm great. It's good to be here. I'm glad that you asked. I'm honored to be on your show. Let's make some magic happen today. How about
All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this. So OTRS, the Off the Rope Show channel, is something that I've been checking for quite some time. I ran across it looking for a WWE Raw upload on YouTube and came across your YouTube channel and review. You were at the time doing SmackDown you were doing a SmackDown review by yourself, but you were also doing Raw reviews with Tony, Mr. Route, and a whole host of others, and it turned into a sit down, and then it got a little more animated and things of that nature. When did that start, and why did you start?
It started back in late 2010. What happened was Tony and I would sit there and listen to my friend Jarrell do a wrestling podcast, and he did it with his broadcasting school outside of Chicago. I think it was called like Pile Driven Respect. And it was basically him and two jabronis. And we would sit there and say to ourselves, well, he's all right. The other two people are idiots. They suck. And we started to think, why couldn't we do that? Why couldn't we do that better than him? And me and my infinite arrogance and egotism assumed that, of course, I was going to be much better than that. So we tried to figure out and debate how we were going to do this because we really didn't know what in the blue blazes we were going to do. And then we went on YouTube and realized that people actually did videos about professional wrestling. We said, well, we ought to give that a go. And on December 6, 2010, we did indeed give it a go, and the rest, as they say, is history.
And it was a good history at that, because people like me are, I would say just directly, even PJTW Central is a straight knock. And it is not trying to be it's not a level of trying to bite, but it's definitely a level of respect and how much you guys influenced me and going into doing this on my own. So kudos to you, man. There was a moment, and I'm not sure if you wanted to go into this or not, but there was a moment where there was this issue, and it was all left in the air because the OTRS content disappeared. The OTRS content, the stuff that you were doing at the time, you stopped doing it to basically deal with this stuff. There was all of these, what do you want to call, speculations and all of these rumors about your health, rumors about this, rumors about that. I mean, you remember that stuff like it was yesterday. I do. I know I do. What happened with that? Why did the content stop at the time? When did you come back to doing the OTRS Central? And why are you doing it alone now? And how are the other guys doing it? And if they are still involved with doing things, wrestling and content, maybe YouTube or something else?
Well, what happened was we had the old channel, which was the Off the Rope Show, which you had been a long-time viewer of, and many others had as well. And then, back in 2012, we had this idea, and it wasn't obviously a very good one. It was a very bad one. It was a very dumb one that we did anyways, and that was that newsletter, that wretched fucking thing. If there was one thing I could ever change, it would be ever coming up with that concept or ever deciding to do that in the way we did it, how we did it, why we did it, when we did it, and what we did it for. Back in the summer of 2012, it turned a lot of people against us, and understandably so, even though a lot of the people that hated us were still watching, whether they ever wanted to admit it. But what eventually happened over a period of time is that crap got me so stressed out, it started to actually, it seemed like play a part in a health issue that I was having, in terms of where I would be sitting there and doing nothing, and then all of a sudden my pulse would just jump up like 3 to 4 times its normal rate. I would just be sitting there, nothing going on, and then all of a sudden my pulse would maybe go from like 70 beats a minute to, maybe like 180 or even 200 beats a minute, let's say. I mean, it would be serious and scary stuff because you don't know what's going on. You feel like your heart beating out of your chest, what have you. So what happened was early in 2013, that Off the Rope Show channel actually got hacked. All the videos got deleted by somebody. The channel got deleted by somebody, and you know what it is, can't change it, don't regret it. I mean, somebody did it. They did it for their reasons, and they probably felt they had good reasons for it. I don't hate on them for it. We had already started this OTRS Central channel because I guess in some ways I thought maybe this was going to be something that would happen at some point in time. But what happened was, too, a lot of people would see pictures of me posted on the internet of me wearing like a heart rate monitor and stuff, because we were trying to figure out at the time what was going on with that issue. And then once that channel went away, I don't know, somebody started it or whatever, but there got to be rumors that the Schlegdaddy was dead and all that stuff, and oh my Christ, it all went to hell. But good thing is that issue has long since subsided. It doesn't seem to be an issue anymore. Back in July of 2013, I actually moved from Iowa, where the other guys were, to Richmond, Virginia, where I still reside. The other guys, as far as I know, are doing fine. I know Tony still watches wrestling. I don't know so much about Mikey or Metal D or Marvelous Mark, how much they're really watching at this point in time. But hopefully at some point in time I can get them on to do some type of thing still with the show, because it just doesn't feel the same no matter how much I try to compensate. It just isn't the same without the old OTRS crew. So yeah, I can tell people at some point in time that they'll be back. We'll do something with them. Just stay tuned.
That's really good to know, because regardless of how you felt about Tony, or especially Mr. Rout, because he played the heel of the cast, what you guys were doing was very special. I think it was something that probably garnered a lot of fandom and then a lot of jealousy. And you know what? If someone's not hating on you for some reason, that means you're not doing something right. It made a fan out of me. It made a fan out of a lot of people. It made a lot of people envy, and actually those people that were envied by it probably went out by now and is probably doing their own podcast in the same vein. So you have to take that into consideration, man. I mean, I'm just glad you're back.
So we never really went anywhere. We're doing it on the other channel. Part of the problem is that I think a lot of people don't realize that I went to the OTRS Central channel, and then that frankly there were some people that didn't want to see just me and see my ego on their screen. So it happens, but I'm here to stay. I ain't going anywhere, so that's the good thing. Now it's all about the here and now and the future. And
yeah, it's something I wanted to talk back on, especially the success of the OTRS show. I felt like you guys tipped. And that's when, if you agree with me, when you put out the Randy Orton video, the Randy Orton Sucks? That's what it was called?
Yeah, it was 15 Reasons Randy Orton Sucks. And yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, there was, because we had been doing the show for about 5 months or so, we were starting to get slowly but very surely growing a bit of an audience, but it was growing very, very slowly. And that was the video that was the game changer for that old channel. There was no question about it. And the funny thing about it was a video I had planned to do for quite some time. I was just waiting for the right moment, the right opportunity, And one thing I've always been, he's good at judging timing and opportunity and taking advantage of it. And back on that day, May 6, 2011, that's exactly what I did. Took advantage of it. And there's no question about it. It was the video of videos for that channel. It was the highest watched Off the Rope Show video. I mean, it still would be far and away. I could only imagine if that video was still up what it would have. It's not one of my favorite videos that I ever did. It's most certainly not one of the best videos I've ever done, not one of the videos I'm the most proud of, but it was what it was. It served its time and it served its purpose, that's for sure.
I definitely would agree that to be a relic that it is in terms of, because not only for the OTRS show, but I think just for the IWC in general, to somehow be able to come back to watch a video like this, because you can, through the progression of Randy Orton and say the significance of that post, it still holds true to a certain degree. And I think people are still influenced by the way that you described him, or even describe him to this day. That's how they view him, and that's how they even talk about him. Is it anywhere, you don't know, any way possible, shape, or form to get that back and to possibly put that back up in terms of history?
Somebody would have had to have saved that video. I don't know if anybody did or not. If anybody's watching this and had that video downloaded or embedded, please reach out to the Schlegdaddy or Peter here and let us know, because I would like to have that video back in the fold. There's no question about it.
It's like a relic. It needs to be online. It definitely needs to be online. So if you don't mind, so being that you live in Richmond, Virginia now, I know when you lived in Iowa, I remember when the Gamble Hall of Fame, are you still involved with that? Even at a distance?
Not really. I mean, I keep dibs on it. I will say this about that Hall of Fame weekend at the Dan Gamble Museum. It's something that needs to be on every wrestling fan's bucket list. It is a truly great experience. It's something that I encourage anybody that proclaims themselves or alleges themselves to be a fan of professional wrestling. You need to go to that weekend. You always get a great Impact Pro Wrestling show from Troy Peterson and his boys and girls. They always put on a good show every year. I know the last couple of years, I think they've done like a Legends Lumberjack match, and the place explodes when somebody like a Baron Von Raschke or a Danny Hodge hits one of the wrestlers. I mean, it's just an incredible event. You get a real chance to get up close and personal with some of these legends. It was an honor those couple of years to be involved with it. I most certainly would love to be, but, again, being as far away from Iowa as I am now, it's just not very logistically feasible. I know Tony still tries to do some stuff with him. I don't know how much he's doing currently, but it's a great event, a great time. Any wrestling fan, you might go to the one I think that's up in New York or the one that's up in Vegas or wherever the hell it's at, but that one in Iowa where it melds and molds amateur and professional wrestling together is a museum, is a event, is a weekend that you need to experience at least once in your life. It's one of the highlights of my life as a wrestling fan, no question about it, if not the highlight.
And yeah, what reminded me of this just recently, because in the world of wrestling, like journalism, Wade Keller from the PW Torch, are you familiar with him?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, let's put it this way. When it comes to wrestling journalism, or as we might affectionately or somewhat affectionately refer to them as the dirt sheets, here's the simple fact of the matter. You have 2, maybe 3 people that really matter, and everybody else is a chop shop or a rip-off artist, no matter how much they want to say it or not. You've got Dave Meltzer, you've got Brian Alvarez, and you've got Wade Keller. Now, I'm not talking about some of the other podcast voice like Don Tony or Kevin Castle or the Solid Monster. They're quality for what they do, but I'm talking about in terms of like insider information, like wrestling dirt, wrestling news. It's all about Dave Meltzer, Brian Alvarez, Wade Keller. Everyone else is a cheap imitation, rip-off, knockoff of them. And their sites are that, regurgitating information from either PW Torch or the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Period, flat out.
Is Alvarez or Meltzer, are they also in the Hall of Fame, or Wade Keller would be the first quote unquote dirt sheet wrestling journalism guy to ever make it in.
Now, I have to tell you something. A couple of years ago, I had suggested that if they wanted to increase the exposure of the event, they needed to put Meltzer in. And the death stares that I got when I said that were very telling. However, with that said, there is no question from a wrestling journalism standpoint, fans know people like Meltzer or Alvarez or Keller. Now, at this point in time, Keller would be the first one to be getting that Jim Melby Award for wrestling journalism. Hopefully that means that Meltzer and Alvarez would get it at some point in time, most especially Meltzer. You know, Meltzer's the one that deserves it. I don't always agree with him and everything, but I cannot diminish his impact or diminish his significance, both positive and negative, on the professional wrestling business. There's no question about it. So it was good for me to hear that Wade Keller was getting that award this year. I just think it frankly should have been Dave Meltzer first, but, you know, that's just me.
I think Wade Keller definitely has, at this time, I found out about the Wade Keller thing through the Court Bauer podcast with the other guy. I can't think of his name right now. But he was also on the Stone Cold Steve Austin show reviewing the Fastlane pay-per-view special event. And I don't know, when you're rubbing shoulders and on podcasts with like people like Stone Cold, and your network is more vast, and you know what he's been doing with PW Torch since 1987, definitely you got a good little network there to make sure that things get in there. Now, I wouldn't be surprised, and I don't know how in touch you are with those same people that gave the death stare to even bring up the idea of bringing in someone in the wrestling journalism world, because it's always kind of like this weird fair weather sort of relationship between wrestling insiders and then the wrestling organizations, because they put out information that they don't necessarily want out there, possibly breaking kayfabe and whatnot, or just journalists going after wrestling for being quote unquote fake and trying to expose it for what it is. So yeah, have you heard back from any of those guys from that suggestion of bringing someone in like a Meltzer or Keller?
No, of course not.
Oh God,
that's fine. It's not about suggesting those things and getting any type of glory. It's about growing that event, because, like I said, I love that event. I love that museum, and I love that weekend, and always will. And again, I emphasize to anybody that is a fan of professional wrestling, it needs to be on your bucket list of something to do at least once in your life.
Well, for anybody who's listening now and understand that, like, you did. Well, you know what? Let me give you a kudos if the people at the Hall of Fame don't give you a kudos. You put the thing in their brain to actually bring in someone like that. I don't think, I'll go to the point where I think something like this wouldn't have happened unless you wouldn't have put that tidbit in their brain. And I bet it's been circulating since. So anyone who's listening, this guy, Jeff Schlegel, the Schlegdaddy, he is solely responsible. You are, dude. You are the catalyst. Just like, hey man, whatever. Just like Stone Cold was the catalyst to get the Macho Man into the WWE Hall of Fame. You were the catalyst to get people like Wade Keller and future Alvarez and Meltzer. So I'm gonna give you a kudos to that. And moving forward,
the only reason I did it was so that way they could give me the award.
You know what? You damn right.
20 years from now. Yes, sir.
So I do remember how pissed you were at the Angle no-show at the one that you were involved in. Do you want to tell that story real quick? Like maybe a concise story, and then we move forward to because I remember the videos of you actually keeping the award and this, that, and the other, because he didn't show up, and it's like what fucking idiot will just like no-show a Dan Gable Hall of Fame acceptance? Like, who would do that?
Especially, here's what I will say in terms of a story on the inside, is that I remember meeting with the museum director at that time, and we were talking about Angle, and I was emphasizing the fact that I didn't think Angle was going to show, and he frankly himself wasn't sure that Angle was going to show. And then he had a couple of award back from like 1995 or 96 from Angle's time as an amateur. That Angle had still never collected that he was given to give to Angle. I said, don't you think that's a good indication that maybe he won't show? And then when he didn't show, it frustrated me because I felt bad for the museum. Here was a guy that's a big-time legitimate star that would be the epitome of what that museum would want to induct into their Hall of Fame wing on the professional side, because he clearly belongs on the amateur side. I mean, it doesn't get much more legitimate overall in the wrestling world, both professional and amateur, than Kurt Angle. He's like the guy of guys for that type of place to get into their Hall of Fame. And for him to disrespect Dan Gable like that and the museum director Kyle Klingman like that, I don't give a damn what type of story he gave. I don't give a damn what type of excuse he made. I don't give a damn if it was the fact that he had to come on his own dime to do it. He disrespected them by not doing it. He disrespected all of those other legends that did come there, that didn't quite have the financial resources, yet they still volunteered their time, their money to come as part of that event. I thought it was incredibly disrespectful on Kurt Angle's part, especially to only notify the museum like a week and a half ahead of time. In some ways, I sometimes regret doing that video because of the way I come across, but it wasn't the most well-received, especially by the museum. But I stand by a lot of what I said. Kurt Angle's a liar, Kurt Angle's a jerk, and Kurt Angle totally disrespected many people that were involved with that event. Thankfully, you still had enough other quality people like JBL and Road Warrior Animal and Jim Ross and Gerald Briscoe that showed up and made the event work and made it a big success that year. But fuck Kurt Angle. How are you going to disrespect Dan Gable? I'll tell you how big of a star Dan Gable is. When you see Jim Ross, Jerry Briscoe, JBL, and Road Warrior Animal halt an autograph session with fans because Dan Gable has walked into the museum, walked into the Hall of Fame wing, and they all stop what they're doing to take pictures with him as a group and individually, you know you're in Iowa and you know you're in the midst of a big star. That's the man that Kurt Angle disrespected by not showing up in the way that he did.
I can imagine a guy like Dan Gable take that moment. He's walking in with The Rock, right? And people are like, holy shit, there's Dan Gable.
In Iowa?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it works. Dan Gable is king in Iowa. There's no question about it. And that's exactly what it is. Dan Gable trumps all. I mean, you want to talk about who's marks and that's who's that marks, who's this mark, and who's that mark. I guarantee you the biggest marks in the room when Dan Gable walked in were Jim Ross, Jerry Briscoe, JBL, and Road Warrior Animal. They immediately stopped everything that they were doing to go take pictures with him, shake your hands. I thought they were going to ask him for autographs. I'm dead serious.
Oh man, that's so awesome to hear. I mean, that's what's great about. You know what? Never mind. I think wrestling is awesome, you know. Wrestling in its own universe is this microcosm of chivalry and respect that, you know, from the casual, say someone who doesn't really understand wrestling, they see wrestling fans and they go, hey man, like this shit's, you know, that shit's fake, right? Or kind of clown it for what it is. But like for the people like me and you and we don't get to hear much stuff like that, and it reassures us as fans that it's good to be on the side of this, because it's you got some really good people out there that busted their chops to make sure that people like us, and it reassures us why we enjoyed the sport for what it is, you know. And yeah, dude, and for you to witness that, man, I'm jealous. I imagine a lot of people are jealous just to be able to be in the same room with the likes of a Dan Gable, and Animal and Jim Ross, and then for them to mark out to him, you just see that there is a lineage. People do stand in line sometimes, no matter how big they are, how much we look up to them. Right. They look up to others, and that's really cool. Let's move on to this thing called the WWE. This universe called the WWE. Right now, the state of the WWE is in a world of, I don't know what you would call it, hurt, transition, adaptation, but we are looking for new stars. We want new stars because we're sick of seeing Cena at the top. We're sick of seeing Orton at the top and this, that, and the other. All of a sudden, we have this guy by the name of Daniel Bryan who stepped in, who's all of a sudden become a fan favorite. And then you have a new face that's being pushed by Vince by the name of Roman Reigns. And even though we're trying to get new stars at the top, it's not necessarily Reigns is not necessarily the people that we want there, quote unquote, and people wanting Bryan, Daniel Bryan to be at the top. Is it a situation where it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you're, say, Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn?
Well, it's their own fault. They've created that situation. So Vince McMahon has nobody to blame but Vince McMahon. Kevin Dunn has nothing to do but eat carrots and blame himself and fantasize over that. That's sports entertainment. But the fact is they have so neglected for so long to build stars, and it's so indicative of them being a corporate environment and being a publicly traded entity where their product mirrors the reality of their business world, that it's all about the here and now. It's not about long-term vision. They're trying to justify who they are, trying to justify a stock price. They're trying to make sure that they cover just enough to be able to pay out their dividends, even though it's continuing to dwindle their cash on hand. But yeah, when it comes to building a new star, they built one to a degree in Daniel Bryan. And I think what happened, some fans got a taste of it, and just when they were really starting to get a taste of it and really get behind it, it got yanked away from them. That's not the WWE's fault, it's just the way it happened. So now fans are remembering how good that felt to them in late 2013, early mid-portion of 2014, and they want more. And as a result, seeing somebody like Roman Reigns come along who fits kind of that mold of what everybody always fantasizes the WWE wants to push in the top guy, now it makes those hardcore fans that love Daniel Bryan resent Roman Reigns, because it's not just about Roman Reigns, it's about what he represents in terms of WWE's mindset. However, with that said, I have to say a couple of things. Number one, to all the people that are butthurt about Daniel Bryan not main eventing WrestleMania, I understand it, but shut up.
Oh, God.
Shut up. Because it's not his time every year. Because if they did it again here at WrestleMania 31, then WrestleMania 32, it's going to be the same fucking thing. Then 33, it's going to be the same thing. And 34, 35, and all of a sudden we've got a goat-faced vanilla midget version of John fucking Cena. That's exactly what it is.
And then they're going to turn on that.
Shouldn't be the only guy. Daniel Bryan shouldn't be the only new star that is made. The moment isn't right. The timing isn't right. The opportunity isn't right. For Christ's sakes, I'm not even sitting there saying that Roman Reigns is the perfect choice, as I've talked about before. But you're really going to tell me that you want people to buy WrestleMania 31 on the backs of Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship? Get the fuck out of here.
This is what I was trying to get to Jake, and Jake is one of those guys that, he's really disappointed in the fact that they're not necessarily running with Reigns, but not running with Bryan. And I was trying to tell him how you look at a guy like Reigns. He's very young. He has the package. You hate to be sort of short-minded on these kind of things, but you have to look at the WWE as a business, and it's a multi-billion or billion-dollar business. Whatever, fuck. It's just more money that I'd have to be able to run a business, and you have to look at packages. And I was telling him, it's like, well, you look at Daniel Bryan. Imagine him on the Jimmy Fallon show, and they're trying to promote WrestleMania 31, right? And he's on the Jimmy Fallon show, and he's there to basically promote because he's in the main event versus Brock Lesnar for the World Heavyweight Championship, right? WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Could you imagine the perspective of the people in the crowd and how they take that all in? It's like, you mean to tell me you are going up against Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania for the Heavyweight Championship, and you look like that? You don't look like a heavyweight. How how am I supposed to believe this? Why am I going to tune into WrestleMania when a guy like Brock Lesnar is going to take you and use you as a toothpick? And he was like, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. And I was like, no, it does matter. Could you imagine? Am I making any sense here?
No, I think you're making a lot of sense. Here's part of the thing, is from Daniel Bryan fans' frustration, is that I understand it, I get it. Because frankly, we're looking at this point, what the hell is Daniel Bryan going to do at WrestleMania? Here's a guy who is one of your top guys, who is, very well over with the audience, unanimously pretty much as a babyface, one of the few guys that gets a legitimate roundabout babyface reaction. And he's one of your top stars heading into your biggest show of the year, and you don't have anything planned for him. If for all we know, hell, he could be in that IC title ladder match because the WWE is stupid. They could send Sheamus at him because, again, the WWE is stupid. They could put him in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal for all the hell we know. The whole point is, at this particular point in time, this guy who main evented WrestleMania 30 last year, that a lot of that show was built around him and his story with the Authority, now come 1 year later, they don't even have anything planned for him at WrestleMania. Part of the stupidity of putting Daniel Bryan in that spot is because if the WWE isn't bought into him and the WWE isn't committed to him, then what the hell are they going to do when they actually put him in that spot? Well, they can't even be bothered to figure out anything with him now. However, with that said, I understand why fans are frustrated and they're pissed because this is the best you've got. I mean, I'm not the biggest Daniel Bryan fan, but I have enough sense to recognize he's one of your top guys. He needs to be one of your featured performers at WrestleMania. You shouldn't have him blowing in the breeze like a fart downwind. You should have something major in store for him at WrestleMania, and the simple fact that they don't is reckless and borderline negligent.
And do you remember after WrestleMania, and he had the belt, and I was thinking, when he went into that whole I Knew What You Did Last Summer slam thing, what they tried to do with the Demon Kane, what they did with Zack Ryder, they threw him in, like, this is your world heavyweight champion. And he's with his old lady, and he's running away from Kane. And I was like, is this what they had planned all along afterwards?
Yeah, and it's kind of the thing is that when you talk about the appearances in mainstream media, hardcore fans don't want to hear that stuff. Hardcore fans don't want to believe that crap because hardcore fans want to watch what hardcore fans want to watch, and in a lot of cases they're blinded by what they want and can't see the bigger picture, and that's fine. They're fans. They're viewing it from a fan perspective. However, it doesn't change the reality is that the WWE is a business, and the casual and mainstream fans are far more fickle than the hardcore fans because for all the bitching and complaining we all do as hardcore fans, we still come back, we still watch. It's those casual and mainstream fans that if they aren't remotely interested, they're just going to flip away, and they might not come back for months, if at all. Those are the fans that WWE has to appeal to because they are the lion's share of the audience, therefore generating the lion's share of the revenue. And your point about, well, are you going to really send Daniel Bryan on the Jimmy Fallon show? The hardcore fans won't want to hear it. But yes, we've gone from Hulk Hogan, the Macho Man Randy Savage, the Ultimate Warrior, Jake the Snake Roberts, guys like that appearing on Regis and Kathy Lee, to guys like Stone Cold Steve Austin, to guys like The Rock hosting Saturday Night Live, to the NWO with Hogan, Hall, and Nash and that crew taking over the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, to freaking Daniel Bryan. You're not going to get anywhere with pushing that guy as the top guy. He is not going to get over with a mainstream audience because they're going to take one look at him and say, I think I can beat him in the fight. Why the fuck should I watch this? I mean, Daniel Bryan, for Christ's sake, is my size.
Yeah.
But think about this. Why would people want to pay money in professional wrestling? We're not talking about boxing where they have weight classes. We're not talking about mixed martial arts where, again, they have weight classes. We're talking about this is the guy that's supposed to be going for your heavyweight championship. What a joke.
Yeah.
Period. So fans might not like it, but that's tough shit. That's the way it is. It's the reality of the world.
And what you're speaking on right now in terms of like this hardcore fan, back in the day, a hardcore fan, you can say, oh, because the product was better. Nevertheless, it's not like if we will always find something wrong with the product, always and forever. But yes. This Daniel Bryan and the push for him and the Reigns hate, and I would say since I would say even since last year. And this is the involvement with the IWC and this idea of this fan activism. I mean, even back to the Summer of Punk, this idea of him having to win the belt against John Cena in Chicago, and this idea of Daniel Bryan having to be the top guy. It's gone from, and it's been scripted in, so it's almost kind of a shoot, to this fan activism that's happening, to where you see hashtag cancel WWE Network because we don't get our way. We have people who had the whole Punk thing, and how when he walked away, you had people planning and organizing, right? Like voters, to the ballots to find our president of the United States. They're actually organizing and how they're going to conduct at a Raw taping, or at a Raw show, or a pay-per-view, and this idea that they want to make the WWE into a indie promotion. Like this indie promotion is an indie promotion because it's an indie promotion. It has a different set of content, has different types of performers, and this, that, and the other, and this is why they remain indie. Why do WWE fans and this whole activism are trying to tell the WWE how to run their business, but not only that, try to model itself not so successful one, but to the likes of, say, what the WWE isn't today. You see what I'm saying? Like we want WWE to be the ROH. Like, well, look where ROH is, and look where WWE is. Apparently, it's two different philosophies going on, and how this became a $1 billion company, and this one is still working within the hundreds of thousands.
Well, here's what I'll tell you: is let's start off with this first. Is that who are the last two top guys outside of the Breakfast Club that have been really made into big stars over the past 5 to 6 years? Your answers are CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, and that's it. That is it. They were two guys that came in with over a decade of pedigree on the independent scene. They were two guys that came in with their own hardcore established fan base that the WWE didn't have to do a lot with them in order to really get them over. They just had to put them in a position when the timing was right. Other than that, who in the hell has the WWE really built up? So from a hardcore fan standpoint, I can't blame them to a degree, because the only two guys they've really built into decent-sized stars over the past several years have been CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, two ROH guys. And frankly, when you look at the roster, there's a lot of other guys that spent years on the independent roster, both on the main roster and in NXT, spent time in ROH. So they saw those guys there, and they think that what they did there should automatically translate to the WWE level. As far as the whole activism thing, though, it gets a bit ridiculous. At the end of the day, the WWE should be smart enough to be able to do what's best for business. About the fans sitting there and doing things like cancel WWE Network, you cancel it, you'll fucking be back, you'll still be watching, you'll still be buying merch, good Christ almighty. But even more so, when you talk about the fact of, you look back at the Hogan era, the Attitude Era, here's how ridiculous the hardcore fan base has become today. Is that if we were all around doing this crap during the Attitude Era, we'd be bitching about Austin every single week, burying every fucking buddy with this stunner. We'd be bitching about how every segment involved freaking Vince McMahon, the biggest star of the Attitude Era. We'd be talking about how stupid and unrealistic half of the crap that Undertaker and Kane did. We'd be talking about how corny and stupid Rock's not funny humor was. We'd be talking about this, we'd be talking about that, and those hardcore fans would be pushing for people like Dean Malenko to get a main event push in the WWF at the heart of the Monday Night Wars, the Attitude Era.
You hit it right on the head, bro.
That's fucking ridiculous. So yeah, what happens is that for every one hardcore fan that raises the volume of his voice, there's 5 to 8 fans that aren't like that at all. But does that one hardcore fan outweigh those other 5 to 8? No, they're just louder than the other ones. That doesn't make them more important. That doesn't mean that they generate more money for the company. They most certainly do not. And at some point in time, the WWE can't sit there. They already created an environment where those hardcore fans believe that they could dictate the terms of what happened on the show last year. You can't let that shit fly anymore. There's a point in time where you got to put the foot down, and you got to tell them enough is enough, and that's not going to happen anymore. We are the WWE. We are going to run shit the way we see best, and then we hopefully can appeal to you. That's the way it should happen. Of course, the WWE finds a way to screw the pooch and really doesn't accomplish anything either. Hence, they're giving us what is shaping up to be, for sure, a forgettable Wrestlemania that is going to be off the mark on so many different levels. But the fan activism crap, I understand why people get off on it. They see other people doing it on the same social media. They're like, oh my God, this is incredible and this is awesome. And they think they have a whole lot more power and a whole lot more influence than what they really do. And the fact that the WWE let them think that is their own damn fault. I don't blame the hardcore fans, I blame the WWE. But if the hardcore fans think about it, think about the stupidity of what we all say from time to time, think about back in the Hogan era, we'd be sitting there and bitching about Mr. Perfect should be the top guy, not Hulk Hogan, because Hulk Hogan can't wrestle, even though Hulk Hogan was hundreds of times the star of a great talent like Mr. Perfect, and Hulk Hogan was hundreds of times the moneymaker of a guy the caliber of a Mr. Perfect or a Ravishing Rick Rude. That's how stupid we can be as a fan base, period.
And that boils over to something I wanted to get your thoughts on was this, something that I've been aware of is that, and I applaud last Sunday's Fastlane, is because there was moments in different matches where heels were heels. You know, something like grabbing a handful of tights, something like the low blow, things that nature that makes us want to be like, yo, what the fuck's wrong with this guy? Like, that's fucked up. Why is he cheating? And the face. But like, I would say over the past couple of years, there's been this weird gray area that everyone wants to be as cool as the NWO, as the bad guys, you know, wants to be as cool as Stone Cold Steve Austin, as cool as The Rock when he was heel. Do you think in this gray area, like, why don't we get any more heels? And why are we so flooded with baby faces?
Well, it kind of depends because, I mean, are you really flooded with baby faces? Who are really heroes today? In a lot of ways, the top baby faces in the WWE are the biggest villains of all. Because they not only do they not have obstacles to overcome, i.e. John Cena, they actually become the obstacles themselves. Therefore, if they're the obstacle, if they're the barrier, if they're the ones that are dominant and overbearing, they become the bad guys. They become the villains, the ones that you want to boo. The whole problem here is that it's a very hard business to get people over the right way. You've got the hardcore fans that are only going to cheer for a certain type of guy no matter what the fuck they're going to say. Then you have those casual and mainstream fans that are only going to be interested in certain things no matter what they say. So you go, let's say, to a pay-per-view event or a Raw or SmackDown taping, and you'll have a heel like Seth Rollins getting cheered. But you'll have a babyface like Roman Reigns getting booed. You know, they haven't done a very good job of giving us reasons to hate Seth Rollins, and they haven't given us a good enough reason to really get behind and emotionally invested in and engaged in Roman Reigns as a personality, as somebody for us to get behind.
But don't you think? But don't you think the fact that Tyler Black is not getting booed because he's an internet darling? I mean, you know, is that why he's getting cheered? You can make. I feel like they're doing a great job of making Seth Rollins into this dastardly, like, squirrely asshole. You know, they're doing a great job. I don't like him. Like, in storyline, I don't root for the guy. I want to see us get his ass kicked. And I imagine there's a lot more people like that. But, like, generally what you see when he comes out and he does get cheered is because of the influence of the people who are fans of him as Tyler Black and want to see him succeed. How do they change that around? I mean, how do you turn something like that around?
Well, part of the whole thing comes into how you book your baby faces. You have to give your baby faces vulnerabilities. You have to give your baby faces weaknesses. You have to give your baby faces, you know, the type of chinks in the armor, so to speak, that people can actually get behind, that people can actually like. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Compare Ryback to Roman Reigns. There is no comparison of the reaction. Ryback gets a far greater reaction. 2 years ago, Ryback is in that Roman Reigns type of position. What's the difference? People can relate to Ryback now. He got depushed. He got buried. Now he's had a chance to show himself a little bit more, show a little more personality. People have been reintroduced to him. He hasn't been forced down their throats quite as much. And as a result, people are like, hey, he's not so bad. You know what? I can get behind him. He's got an easy chant to get behind. He's kind of a cool dude. What have you. Yeah, the whole thing about Seth Rollins getting cheered because he's Tyler Black, yeah, that's part of the thing. It's hard for the WWE to do it, but it's their own fault. As far as your point with Seth Rollins, kind of this dastardly guy, you know, the problem is they book everybody like a cookie-cutter chicken shit heel. The villains aren't villains. They aren't really bad guys. I mean, what does Seth Rollins really do? He always needs help. Well, it would be okay if he was the only one that always hid or needed all of that help. The problem is, on the one hand, they try to do that, then they try to present him as being legitimate, but then they book him as if he's not, as the only way he can win is with that cheating. It's not just outsmarting, it's just flat out cheating. And you've got so many every other time it seems like they push a top heel, he's got to be that same type of cookie cutter chicken shit guy. You look at when they did it with Daniel Bryan, same thing. When they did it with CM Punk, same thing. When hell they did it with Randy Orton, same thing. Why does every villain have to act that way? Different villains should act different ways. You should have somebody who's a villain because he's legitimate. A guy who can cheat, who is willing to cheat, but not because he has to, because he wants to. He's a guy that can still get the job done with or without any hijinks. A guy like a Triple H, let's say, who could cheat, maybe wanted to cheat, but he didn't have to cheat in order to win. You could still take him legitimately. You could still take him as a credible threat. And I think to a degree you can't do that with Seth Rollins. No matter how much of a Randy Orton-like force he is getting down our throats right now, there's a certain point in time where you can't take him that seriously because there's always help. It's always some type of hook. There's some type of crook manner. Why can't he go out there once in a while and beat somebody straight up that is above him or at his level? Why can't he sit there and cheat? Not because he has to, but just because he fucking wants to.
And you want to bring up the idea of taking him seriously, and this is, I guess this boils over. It's something I didn't want to go into. I want to move forward. But the booking of him and Jon Stewart. And I'm totally afraid that after this, if he's going to have to sell to Jon Stewart, or we're going to have to see this comical sort of like, kind of, what's the word I want to use? Sort of spirited, sort of Seth Rollins in this feud with him. Do you think this is going to do him any favors? Are we going to end up with another, you know, who's that motherfucker who that won the WWE Championship?
David.
Who? Say his name?
David Arquette. I mean, you're not going to get that level. They're not going to put the belt on Jon Stewart.
No, not at all. I'm just saying, like, the idea of him having to sell. He's like this dastardly dude. He's breaking Brock Lesnar's ribs, but he's going to get into this feud with Jon Stewart. I mean, he came onto the show, and you know, Jon Stewart puts him in a headlock, and all of a sudden he's laughing and smiling about it. And I go like, wait a minute, man. Like, I don't see this turning out to be too good of a situation for Seth Rollins. And I understand it's the exposure. I mean, like, dude, that's an awesome push. But, like, to what extent is this going to go?
I mean, it's not going to go much. I don't see where they're going to have Jon Stewart involved at WrestleMania, so I frankly don't get the whole point of it.
Me neither.
I think it was one of the things that WWE just scripted it into a freaking promo. They actually didn't think Jon Stewart would respond, even though it's well known for anybody that's watched Jon Stewart over the years, myself included, that he's a fan of professional wrestling. And if any way, it just shows you how out of touch the WWE is. If Jon Stewart was going to be involved with anything coming to a WrestleMania, he should have been involved 2 years ago when they were in the fucking new giant stadium up in the New York, New Jersey area. But of course, as so often the case, WWE is a day late and a dollar short.
Yeah. Let's go into the reason why you made that Superstar video, because I think it's something that it's probably becoming just as popular, if not as popular, as your Randy Orton video.
I don't know.
Well, it has that. It still has that sort of feel to it, because it does definitely it makes a lot of people upset for you to speak in that nature, and you'd be the first to be, oh, you know, you're stuck in the past, you're this, that, and the other. What was the moment that you felt like you needed to make that video?
Oh, I've alluded to it over the years, and I've talked about it at times, but it was just one of those things I thought it was necessary to talk about. I mean, because we've got people sitting there comparing Daniel Bryan to Stone Cold Steve Austin. We've got people sitting there and talking about how Seth Rollins is legitimately the future, and I'm just sitting there and I'm looking at it. And I can't be the only one that says that if these are the top guys, how sad is the business today?
Yeah.
And it's not just a reflection of them, even though it is in part. It's a reflection of the WWE as a whole. Like, a lot of people take that to be me just being a mark for size or being a mark for the muscle guys, and that's not the case. I'm not just a fan of the muscle guys. I'm not just a fan of the big guys. I'm not. However, with that said, I also understand how important those guys are on the bigger stage and the grander scheme of things. Variety is the spice of life. If you have all giants, that's not a good thing. If you have all midgets, that's not a good thing. You need guys of all different shapes, styles, and sizes. And I think especially the hardcore fans want too much to group everything into one thing. And I'm going to resent anybody that sits there and tries to pee on my leg and tell me it's fucking raining. And telling me that Daniel Bryan is some massively over megastar is ridiculous. No, he's not. Telling me that John Cena is so damn important to the WWE is fucking ridiculous. Because if those guys were such megastars, if they were so widely and massively over, then why the hell does Wrestlemania still have over 10,000 unsold seats with less than a month to the damn show?
What?
If John Cena, Randy Orton, Daniel Bryan, Triple H, and the rest of them are such big, massive megastars, and they've been featured so prominently on WWE television in recent years, how come business has declined? How come they struggle to consistently sell out their live events? How come television ratings have either flatlined, stagnated, if not decreased with those guys at the top?
Can I ask you this?
Yes.
Do you think so apparently Monday night there's news that Brock Lesnar walked out on the WWE. Not to go into too much detail, but do you think that's somewhat part of it, like what you're explaining right now?
No, I think it's Brock Lesnar wanting money and wanting to dictate more terms to the WWE, and they don't want to curtail, they don't want to lose Lesnar, but they also don't want to pay Lesnar what he wants and want to give into him what he wants to be given into him. But, you know, the WWE has nobody but themselves to blame.
But don't you think
that wanted this so bad? Hold on, but all the fans that wanted this so bad, you saw what his asshole did 11 years ago at WrestleMania 20. You put him in a big featured spot, and then he was going to leave the company. You saw what happens. Now, you've put the main event of your most important show of the year into the hands of a guy who's not very good at calling the matches. He's going to be in the ring with a young guy who is still pretty green as goose shit in the grand scheme of things in Roman Reigns, and you're trusting your main event of your biggest show of the year to a guy who may very well not be under contract after WrestleMania 31 to the company. We've been down this road before. How has that worked? Why is that supposed to be any better this time around? This is the stupidity of the WWE. And the funny thing is, the closest thing they really have to a functional megastar today is honestly Brock Lesnar. But they've featured him so little that he went from being a special attraction to being no attraction to when he came back, he became the wrong type of attraction. And all the while, really didn't benefit the WWE from a ticket sales standpoint, from a rating standpoint, and from a merchandise standpoint. They've done a terrible job merchandising and marketing Brock Lesnar.
Yeah,
That's the WWE today. Even when they have a guy who could be a megastar, who can cross over, they can't figure out what the fuck to do with him.
Whose fault is that?
Well, that's the WWE's. And I'm not, again, I want to emphasize to the people that got mad at me when I said that, you know, part of what hurt the business is it got smaller. Well, it's true. That is part of the problem. But I'm not totally just fixated on that. And that is by no means the only problem. But the fact is the guys aren't as big and aren't as talented as they once were. What happened was 15, 20 years ago, a lot of these guys that were too small and not athletic enough to compete in these other sports started to talk like we do now about wrestling on forums and on the websites and in the chat rooms and everything else. And they thought, man, that'd be so cool if I could be just like them and be a professional wrestler. What happened? They got into the business. The business got smaller over time. Now guys that don't really have any business getting pushed are getting pushed. Guys that shouldn't be top guys are top guys. And the WWE doesn't know what to do with them because they only appeal to a certain segment of the audience. They're not megastars. John Cena being that vitally important is a fucking joke. Randy Orton a megastar? Child, please.
Do you think
Daniel Bryan a megastar? If Daniel Bryan is your top guy, if Daniel Bryan is your biggest star, that is sad.
Do you think that
because
ties over?
Like a star.
Do you think that ties over to say what's happening in Hollywood now, and the fact that we went from guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger to Adrian Brody to being like the guy in the Terminator? We don't have we have these sort of like everyman sort of people in these big roles where they're overcoming these huge obstacles, say like a larger size something, where you get Adrian Brody, right? We go from Arnold Schwarzenegger to Adrian Brody taking out the Terminator, and then guys like now why The Rock is doing so well as a big mega superstar hero, because our only options are Will Smith and say Tom Cruise.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, there is a part to that. It's not the only part of the story, but it is a part of the story. Size does matter in professional wrestling. There is no question about it. It's not the only thing that matters. It's part of the problem, but it's not the only problem. The biggest problem of all is the WWE themselves, in the fact that they don't present guys like stars. They don't give us reason to get behind stars. They don't promote their stars. They don't push their stars. They don't make stars.
Do you see people like Uhad Nation and Chris Cage, that's his name? Do you see those guys sort of transition? They could transition over to the WWE at their size and at their agility to be able to become big stars?
Well, I'll put it this way. What color is
Brian Cage? Sorry, Brian Cage. I apologize, Brian Cage.
Okay. What color is Uhad Nation?
He's black in the mug.
Okay. How is that going to work for him in the WWE? This is how ridiculous the WWE is, and when we're talking about the lack of superstars, they have a major credibility problem, especially in this country in particular. When many of your top athletes in basketball are black men, when many of your top athletes in football are black men, when many of the fastest men and best athletes in the world, let's say in track and field, are black men, and your product is predominantly white with stars at the top, you have a major credibility problem. Whether people want to talk about it or not, the simple fact of the matter is there are certain stigmas that go along with white athletes. They're slower, they can't jump as high, they're not as strong, they're not as fast, they're not as quick, they're not as explosive, what have you. We all know this. We can't pretend like they're not truths. We've created this as a society. So now we're sitting there and telling people to take this product seriously at a time where UFC's arguably most dominant champion of all time is a black man and John Bones Jones. Tune into Raw and watch John Cena and Randy Orton and Daniel Bryan. White. In a country dominated by black athletes, WWE is dominated by the white athlete. It's not the 1950s or the 1960s anymore. If they want to be taken legitimately, they must branch out. If they want to be taken legitimately, they must understand that a much larger segment of their fan base is non-white than they want to pretend, believe, or realize. As a result, they must understand that they have to, more than anything else, spend the next 2 to 3 years dedicating themselves to creating 2 to 3 big-time black superstars. Until this company does that, they will restrict themselves. You think about it yourself as a black man. Wouldn't it be nice to have somebody that you could get behind that looked like you, that you felt understood you, that came from your background? That's why somebody like a Mark Henry gets over when he does, because we so rarely see it, and you have a whole segment of the fan base that's like, finally, one of our own is actually being taken seriously. One of our own is actually getting a push. They actually care about him for a change.
I say this, and this is one of the reasons why I have gotten more into independent wrestling, whether it's ROH or, I watch some TNA sometimes. Not a lot. I wouldn't consider myself a fan, but you look at these black men in these situations, and they aren't pushed like R-Truth. They're not pushed like Titus O'Neil. These guys are just guys in the ring, just like every other white guy in the ring. And you asked me who my favorite. I have three favorites: Diamond Dallas Page, Dustin Rhodes, Goldust, and Booker T. And Booker T was that to me as a child. Even though he was the whole Harlem Heat thing and this, that, and the other, you move forward to like something like Crime Time, and I go like, what the fuck is this? This is not what I can relate to. I don't see myself as this. I don't see myself as an R-Truth. I don't see myself as these entities, which are black athletes. I see myself as a ACH. I see myself as more of a Cedric Alexander. These guys are just athletes in the ring who don't need a gimmick. And this is where it boils down to. I'll be ashamed to show somebody a match who doesn't really like wrestling. I'll be ashamed to show them R-Truth in the ring, and him shucking and jiving and jigabooing and shit, and him on commentating on Monday sounding like an out-of-date, an old black dude that just seems like he's stuck in the 1990s. It's just I can't, not necessarily that there is no black people in there, because it is. I just can't even relate to the black people that are even in there. You know what I'm saying?
How ridiculous is it that you can better relate to the white guys than the black guys as a black man? It's ridiculous. It's stupid. It's not saying that it's a bad thing to be able to relate to the white guys, because let's face it, in the 90s, part of the appeal for the NWO that nobody in the business ever wants to talk about is that they brought gang warfare to professional wrestling.
Yes.
And as a result, they were able to draw in huge droves of black and Hispanic fans that were living that reality on a day-in, day-out basis. Day in, day out. They took gang warfare that was being talked about in gangster rap, that was crossing over to the suburbs. They were bringing that to professional wrestling. DX did it in a different way, so on and so forth. But the NWO, above all else, that was about gang warfare. And even then, you still had white guys running the fucking gang. But at least then, you could buy into that. At least then you could believe in that. It was something you could relate to. It was something that all of us could understand. But now we sit there, and I'm sitting there watching as a Russell Wilson almost leads his team to a second straight Super Bowl victory. You have other big-time stars in the NFL. We don't even need to talk about the NBA. You got the LeBron Jameses, the Stephen Currys of the world, and so on and so forth. But you come here to the WWE, and the fact of the matter is, just like in the NBA, they just don't make the white boys like they used to. Period. And furthermore, sitting here and saying today that the WWE is just fine based off of all the white guys at the top would be like the NBA being dominated by guys like Kirk Heinrich and Marcin Gortat and so on and so forth. Nice players, legitimate professionals, but they're not the mega stars. It's different if you say somebody like a Dirk Nowitzki, even at his advanced age, he is still a star. He's earned that. That's a bad dude that you'll roll the ball out there on any playground, anywhere in the fucking world, unless you're an idiot, and you'll want a ball with him.
Hey, don't get me wrong, too. I think we're about the same age, and growing up watching sports and me being a huge fan of John Paxson, and being a huge fan of Stockton, being a huge fan of Chris Mullins. These guys, respectively, Larry Bird, Craig Elo, for that matter. Like, these guys were stars in their own right. What's that?
I said Dan Marley, Tom Chambers, all the big men. On
and Robert Parrish, Lambeer, and those guys stood on their own merit. They really did. And today, these guys don't. But it's not their fault. I mean, it's not their fault that they don't have the same star power, but they also don't have the mindset. They don't have the ability to play the game. Not saying that these black guys do too, because they're just as lacking in star power in the NBA than anywhere else. Because I can look at you telling me Christmas Day, and I'm watching the Lakers versus the Knicks or something, or versus the Miami Heat, and I can only point out one or two dudes on the basketball court where back in the day I knew everybody from the bench players up to the starting lineup. I couldn't tell you who's on the bench of the Cavaliers. I could tell you the bench of the New York Knicks. I couldn't tell you. I could not tell you what's going on.
But 20 years ago you could. But again, it comes down to the whole thing is just how out of touch professional wrestling and the WWE most especially is. How sad is it when a TNA that a lot of people doesn't watch is at least confident enough to push a Bobby Lashley as their world champion? And not just as some joke, but they take him seriously. They try to present him like a star. They put together a heel faction where you have multiple black men involved like MVP and Kenny King. They don't have him shucking and jiving and hitting on white girls and doing all of this crap, all the stereotype crap, sitting in jive, soul bro, and everything else. They have him actually trying to present him as top guys. Like you said, on the independent scene, they don't sit there and ask these guys to do this. But when they get to the big show, when they get to the WWE, that's exactly what the fuck they do with them. You've got Vince and Kevin Dunn and Michael P.S. Hayes.
Michael P.S. Hayes.
One big KKK circle jerk is fucking ridiculous. And that's part of the reason why the company lacks superstars, is because they're trying to appeal to the wrong type of audience with the wrong type of guys. They must diversify. And the problem is it's going to take years to do it because so many other talented black and Hispanic and Asian athletes have chosen not to go the route of professional wrestling to make a living because they don't see where the fuck they're ever going to get over. They don't see where they can ever make a living out of it. They don't see where they can make a career out of it.
Yeah,
so you're shutting yourself out to so many potentially great athletes that could draw you so much money and increase your overall fan base and appeal with your racist, old-school, stereotype type of ways in the WWE. If the WWE had two black guys at the top, two consistent Hispanic guys at the top, maybe one Indian and one or two Asians, they would have double the audience they do right now. That's not an opinion. That is a simple fact.
It'd be almost like a male masseuse trying to make it in the game. It's just not going to happen. It's just like, why am I or you going to take, try to go into becoming masseuses when we know that no one would ever hire us to do a damn thing because of the mindset of
that's right,
the old school mindset of people. And it's unfair because it keeps people from being ambitious. It keeps people from doing what they really want to do. All right, moving on. Let's speak on that as long as you want, but like your thoughts on 1 year of the WWE Network.
WWE Network was a good concept. WWE Network was something that the company had to do. I was happy for the fact that they understood that the old way of doing business from the pay-per-view business model, they realized that it was passé, that they needed to change, and they did that. And I applaud them for that. It's been a rough road. I still don't fully buy their 1 million subscriber number. Because when it comes to the WWE, there are very few companies that know how to cook their books and bullshit their numbers better than the WWE. But it's still around. It's going to be something that continues to grow in its size. I think what happened, though, the WWE has a bit of an identity crisis with it. It's a company that still isn't all that great on the media or in the social media world, run by a guy in Vince McMahon who doesn't like the internet, still doesn't understand social media or the internet. And they're trying to get into the 21st century with a very 20th century type of mindset. In terms of the network, I think it'll always be a bit of an uphill battle because they want it to be something that's really over casually and in the mainstream, but it's largely a product that is only going to appeal to about approximately 20 to 25, maybe 30% of their total audience.
Then let me ask you this, bro. Why the fuck was there not a WWE Network commercial during the Super Bowl?
Not a single one. Because I'll tell you why. Because the WWE doesn't understand the importance. It's because also the WWE felt that investing $4 million in a 30-second or 1 minute spot on the Super Bowl to a lot of fans that frankly were never going to subscribe to that network would have been a waste of time.
Do you think they would have subscribed after that interview, after that commercial? I mean, we're talking how many people? Anybody. How many people watch the Super Bowl?
Yeah, but I mean, other than the free month trial, how many of them were really going to subscribe? I agree, it would have been worth the gamble at $4 million for 30 seconds. I mean, you could have at least, or even ran a minute spot, spent $6 or $8 million, whatever the hell it was. You throw out all the old stars like Hogan, Austin, Rock. I guarantee you would have fucking. I'll give you that. Staying power with the network. It's appealing to one segment of the audience, and really one segment alone. The WWE still can't figure out how to get that more widely accepted by casual and mainstream fans. And, it's going to be a continuous challenge for them to understand the network and understand how it works. I mean, it's around. It's gotten better. I think they stubbed their toe a lot with how they rolled it out. The fact that they rolled it out domestic before having it available all over the world was ridiculous. The fact that one of their biggest fan bases in the UK was shut out of it for so long was also a really bad stubbing of the toe. I think at some point in time that network will get to 1.5, maybe 2 million subscribers, but I think that's going to be the ceiling. This talk of 3.5, 4 to maybe 5 million subscribers, I think is overly ambitious and completely and totally unrealistic. Because it's pretty much available worldwide right now, and they're barely cracking 1 million, and I even question that number.
I say the only thing with the WWE Network, because isn't it the first of its kind, really, to take a business with its own content to create a network? It's the first, right?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's the first. I mean, you've got, other brands that have done things like that. Like, they were working in partnership with Major League Baseball and their streaming provider for this. So it's not like they're totally alone, but creating original content like they've been trying to do, it's a different animal for a different type of company. And this was, in theory, the perfect thing for the WWE. It's just the problem is, I don't know if they fully understood everything going into it, and I think they overshot their expectations in terms of, well, we put it at $10 a month, people are going to be falling over themselves because it's going to be the whole mindset of, oh, it's only $10 a month, why not? So fuck it.
Okay, so how about this? How about if there was actually another company to do that? Because here's the thing. Here's what I see about the WWE Network. Because they're the Wright brothers of this sort of content, provide their own content, make a network out of it. They're like the Wright brothers, the first in flight. It's not like someone else was trying to figure out how to make things fly. People took the model of what the Wright brothers did and improved on it. And the thing about the WWE, I kind of put them in the same light. They're like, they're the first ones to do it. So any other content provider, say what's happening with New Japan World, or say with CBS, or say if USA, say if, you take Lifetime, if they all decide to come up with their own channel, take themselves away from the sort of Time Warner, Dish, conglomerate and start putting out their own content at a certain fee, you can get online at VOD, that they're going to see the WWE Network of what not to do. I think if the WWE was maybe second or third or fourth to do something like this, I think we'd probably have a different conversation.
And you're absolutely right. I'm going to tell you exactly why. Vince's great genius was not in his own ideas. It was frankly stealing others' ideas and making them better. When he brought in Hulk Hogan, that was a character concept in a lot of ways that was started off and grown in AWA under Vern Gagne. Vince took Hulk Hogan, made it his own. Made it better, but made it his own. But still stole the character from somebody else. You look at Wrestlemania. What is Wrestlemania? It's a ripoff of Dusty's idea for Starrcade. When the WWE puts out this propaganda that Vince McMahon had this grand image of WrestleMania, sure he did, because he watched Starrcade 83 and he saw what Dusty Rhodes did, and Vince said, I can do it bigger, better, because I've got New York money behind me. When you look at the Attitude Era, what was that a ripoff of? Both what WCW and ECW were doing in terms of their product presentation. Throughout the years, Vince has been the best when he's been able to go off of somebody else and what they do, rip it off, and make it his own. When he's the trailblazer, when he's the leader, it doesn't go well. He has to have those ideas from somebody else and take him and make him his own. And I completely agree with you. If there would have been somebody else, it would have been even better. Because the key thing in this case for WWE with the network would have been, it's not so much important to be first, it's more important to get it right.
Yeah, to be best at it. Let's talk about the CM Punk saga. And we don't have to go into detail about what's going on.
Yeah, but please.
Yeah, but my question is, CM Punk is, speaking of first of his kind, he's probably one of the first wrestlers ever to leave the company and to basically his life outside of his shoot of leaving a company has become a actual mainstream topic. It's not like when other wrestlers get, fired or released. It's not like their lives go on to doing things to where you're following the saga of his post roster run. Do you think this sort of shoot post career with WWE is good or bad for the wrestling business? And this does it damage kayfabe?
Kayfabe doesn't matter because kayfabe is dead. It's been dead for years. And, my thing with kayfabe all the time is you either go all the way or have it go completely away. What happens is the WWE tries to toe the line and they half-ass it. They try to give you elements of reality, but trying to still keep up some premise that it's scripted. They need to choose one way or another. If you're going to be kayfabe, then you need to be all the way kayfabe. In terms of not even having the wrestlers address the people like they're there. Actually put up that fourth wall and surround the business with it while they're there. But at that same point in time, once the wrestling business is done, CM Punk is not CM Punk, he's Phillip Brooks. He's a performer. He's an actor. That way maybe you can get people actually emotionally invested in these characters in the right ways like you do in television shows and movies. The good guys are the good guys, the bad guys are the bad guys in a lot of cases, so on and so forth. As far as what happens here with CM Punk and the WWE, I think it's a bunch of petulant, childish shit on all ends that I wish would stop. I don't think it really helps the business. I don't think it really hurts the business because, frankly, it's inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. I think CM Punk going to the UFC is a good, low-risk, potential high-reward chance taken by Dana White in the UFC, but I don't see how much of a long-term payoff it's going to have. I think Dana White will look back on it as a mistake. CM Punk will look back on it as a mistake. The WWE will look back on many things they did with CM Punk as a mistake, and we'll move on.
But this kind of mainstream shoot sort of coverage, why CM Punk? Of all the people who's left and done things different, and, do you think it's a matter of social media existing? You think it's a matter of, is there something about CM Punk that, what is it about CM Punk that has this privilege to have this mainstream shoot going on to get so much coverage? I mean, they're covering this shit on everything, on ESPN, TMZ, it's a lot. It's probably, when Brock left, it wasn't no mainstream shoot of him and his issues with the WWE and going into medical and going into concussions and going into lawsuits in this matter, relationships with other wrestlers, say, his relationship with AJ Lee. What is it about CM Punk that he has the liberty to be this guy rather than another guy from before who, a disgruntled wrestler?
It's just because they know that CM Punk brings a certain audience with him. I mean, I don't know how mainstream he's really gone. I don't know how consequent TMZ is. I mean, I know to a degree they matter, but, at the end of the day, how much do they really matter? I mean, it's gotten some coverage, but at the end, like I said, at the end of the day, I just don't really think it matters all that much.
Okay.
I mean, it's us as hardcore fans making a much bigger deal out of it than it frankly is.
Okay. All right. I mean, I was just wondering if it was something that you had been thinking of for a while, but not CM Punk to the UFC, but just this coverage of this post-disgruntled wrestler and why he's the one, because he's not the first, and he damn sure won't be the last. So
the best way I can encapsulate it is butthurt. CM Punk fans are butthurt by what happened. CM Punk is butthurt by what happened, and the WWE is butthurt by what happened. Everybody's butthurt.
More than normal.
Yes, more than normal.
Okay. So let's jump into the and we only got two more topics to take on, and then we'll close this out. And one is the idea of the WWE versus the rising popularity of Lucha Underground, New Japan Wrestling, and then NXT. Why does the WWE has to be compared to all of those? I mean, as a logical thinking person, like myself, you are too, why is this constant, has to be this comparison to what we're doing, not what the WWE's doing? Is it really, does it help Lucha Underground to sort of shoot, sort of take a jab at WWE, the American commentary for the New Japan on Access Channel? Does it do them any justice by jabbing the WWE? Well, over there they do this, and over here we do this. And, NXT can't possibly do it, but what they're doing is setting a standard, because they're in the same company, is actually drawing even more of a comparison to what Triple H is doing down there, and the expectation of why is the level of the NXT so good. You're connected to the WWE main roster. Why aren't they sort of paralleling off in terms of quality? Do you think this even needs to happen? Should we just take the Lucha Underground, New Japan, NXT for what they are and not compare them to the WWE? Or is it because WWE is just such a metropolis of an organization that you have no other choice but to make comparisons to?
I mean, in a way, you have no other choice but to make comparisons, because, frankly, the WWE is the kings. And from fans, in part, it is honestly a way to try and justify why they're watching a TNA or an ROH or a Lucha. It's a way to stir up conversation. It's a way to stir up debate. In part, it's a way, again, to defend and justify watching a certain product. But then when these companies also do this shit, they're feeding into this petulant, childish crap by, instead of worrying about what they do and doing that to the best of their abilities, they're trying to sit there and take this jab or that jab, when in the grand scheme of things, they're totally and completely inconsequential. From a WWE standpoint, honestly, TNA is a drop in the bucket. ROH is a joke, and Lucha Underground and anybody else is a fucking no matter. They don't mind. WWE, to them, it doesn't matter. Period. These companies should focus on establishing their own identity. These companies should establish their own way of doing things. They should try and focus on trying to reach out to the modern person and try to become a modern wrestling company, which ROH isn't doing, Lucha isn't doing, TNA most certainly isn't doing, and the WWE themselves isn't desperately doing at all. This business at this time so badly needs somebody to step up and shake up the whole creative mix of the wrestling business. ROH and their karate and hardcore high spot no selling shit ain't getting the job done. Lucha Underground and their lucha libre gymnastic shit, that ain't gonna get the job done. Who the fuck's really watching that? No offense to it, but seriously, who the fuck's really watching that?
I am.
And then TNA. Well, okay, and how many of you are there?
But at the same time, I'm watching it online too. I mean, I can't really pan out, because they say the El Rey network is only the distribution of El Rey is very limited. So I mean, I don't even have a TV.
Doesn't have it.
Huh?
I mean, if people want to watch Lucha, that's fine. Watch Lucha. If Lucha wants to be the best company that Lucha can be, then that's fine. Then don't reference WWE.
They do it.
TNA and all their stupid cracks on WWE over the years. You know what? If you handled your fucking business better, instead of being on Destination America where half of the country can't fucking get you, and those that do have to pay a premium price where it's basically like pay-per-view price every week just to watch your damn show like it was in 2002, maybe you would have had companies and other networks actually competing for your television rights when Spike TV decided they don't want you anymore. Maybe if ROH would focus on stop doing their shit and focus on stop being so goddamn one-dimensional, trying to branch out a little bit, they wouldn't be stuck on a crappy Sinclair network where the company that owns them has decided they don't want to invest any fucking money in them to help them grow or get any damn better.
Yeah, and also talks of ROH joining Spike. You heard about that?
Well, what the hell? Yeah, because that was so wondrous and glorious for TNA, so ROH is going to do it so much better. Oh, Christ almighty, get the fuck out of here. ROH needs a creative clue. TNA needs a creative clue. Lucha, every other wrestling company that has any type of television deal, up to and most especially the WWE, needs a creative clue, and none of them have it. All of them are desperately not searching for it because they're stuck in their own idiotic wrestling bubble. I understand the comparisons to WWE, but at the end of the day, the WWE shouldn't matter to these other companies because they don't matter to the WWE. They need to focus on doing their own thing and turning a profit because they are supposed to be businesses. They need to start running themselves like businesses. When they get to the point where they can actually compete with the WWE, then that's a different ballgame. But until that point, their fans, the people involved, need to stop fucking worrying about it and focusing on it because they sound like petulant brats, frankly.
And me, I mean, I take WWE for what it is. I take Lucha Underground for what it is. I take New Japan for what it is. NXT, ROH. And I find myself, if I was to compare it to the WWE, that I would actually find myself not enjoying the WWE. And I want to enjoy the WWE. I'm not like trying to like fake myself out. I enjoy the product. That's why I keep watching, you know. But if I was to be sitting here and go like, oh, well, they don't do no Lucha Underground. It's like, well, look, Lucha Underground gives you something different. It's not, you know, WWE is not trying to model itself after Lucha Underground is not trying to model itself after WWE. New Japan's not trying to model itself after the WWE. ROH is not trying to, and vice versa. So why do we always have to pick and choose? It's almost like in hip hop. He's like, well, Mos Def doesn't rhyme like this guy, this new popular guy. It's like, well, because you know, his idea is that he's doing something different. I mean, if you try to compare the two, you're basically setting yourself up for more heartache. You know, you don't expect to walk into a Burger King and McDonald's expect something from a gourmet restaurant place. I mean, it's like, well, why is this one selling, you know, trillions and trillions of burgers? Because this is the operation that they work in. You know, this is the way that they set their business standards to. And if you're trying to compare, I just feel like it's such a waste of time. Like you said, it's childish, petulant. I hate hearing it. And that, you know, the New Japan on the New Japan Access thing, they got the two guys, and apparently they're respected wrestlers. But I would much rather listen to the Japanese commentary because I don't have to understand it, and at the same time, I don't have to hear all the time about how the WWE is doing something that New Japan is doing, quote unquote, better. It's just weird to me.
Well, here's a perfect comparison, and that this will be the best way I can sum up my thoughts on this, so we can get to that last topic. Is I'm a huge fan of Married with Children. I was also a huge fan of Seinfeld. Don't ask me to compare the two. I enjoyed Married with Children for so many reasons because of what it was. I enjoyed Seinfeld for so many reasons because of what it was. What purpose does it serve for me to compare Seinfeld and Married with Children? Two different types of shows, two different types of comedies. Comedies they were, and both incredibly successful comedies, incredibly funny shows that I really enjoyed over the years. But don't ask me to pick a Married with Children or a Seinfeld. Why? Why would I compare the two? Why do I need to? I enjoyed both shows incredibly for what they were. You didn't hear Married with Children knocking Seinfeld all the time or vice versa. They were just great comedies. They did their own thing, and they made it work. That's what these companies should do. Do your own thing, make it work. Don't worry about somebody else's.
But what I do think's awesome about, say, the Lucha Undergrounds and the New Japans and the ROHs is that before, whenever you had someone who had got featured endeavored by the WWE, they didn't have too many options to sort of find work unless they had to go really, really deep underground. I think what's happening with AJ Styles and with Alberto Del Rio and potentially Samoa Joe, and say right now with Rey Mysterio finding out yesterday that he just got freed by, released by the WWE, is that these guys are they're rehashing their careers, and they're making way more money doing I wouldn't say from the WWE more money than WWE, but like they're making a healthy living on these promotions. And the indie world is sort of got this thing going on now that you got these guys that have options now like they weren't before. Do you have any thoughts on that idea or no?
I mean, to a degree, for those guys, they may have options to milk people out of some money, but you still don't make. Most of the people still don't make a lot of money on the independent scene. So it's just more of that money goes to these guys that think they have a bigger name and drawing power than they really do. Honestly, if AJ Styles, I'll put it this way: as incompetent as TNA is on so many different levels from a business standpoint, if AJ Styles was really that important, if AJ Styles was really that big of a draw, you don't think TNA would have done more to pay him more to make sure that he stayed in the fold? I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
ADR. What the hell is he? Alberto El Patron. Okay, people didn't give a fuck about him honestly in WWE. Why the hell would they care now? Because he's in ROH and that's all.
Oh well, it's just the story of ADR is kind of a fucked up one. Like you're dealing with Michael P.S. Hayes and whatever bullshit Twitter account guy who was being a complete asshole to him, and then him having to defend himself. He punched him in the face. He got out there. It's like he punched a fucking racist in the face, basically. And it makes for a really good story for him to basically leave because, he was standing up for himself and now showing up to someone.
Yeah, but,
that makes the story hot.
But at the same time, his plight doesn't compare nearly to, let's say, a black wrestler in that company, because here's a fucking Royal Rumble winner, a Money in the Bank winner, a fucking Wrestlemania, guy. Here's a guy that had multiple world titles, multiple big pushes. So I get why ADR was angry and upset. I get why some people want to like him now because he lashed out against that crap. But let's be honest, he benefited from the system of the WWE. He most certainly wasn't hurt by it.
Yeah. But it's one thing to have a really good high-paying job that, the glass ceiling is off and, sky's the limit. But then, behind the scenes, you're dealing with someone who's going to treat you like crap and look at you lower than human. So, I don't know. As a black man, and I can relate to this and knowing that, people like me look up to people even though with all the accolades, we look up to someone like him to be like, you know what, that's pretty badass for him to stand up for himself and his people and not thinking that he's going to tap dance and put up with the shit, And that's something we can definitely just, I guess across the board, we all can relate to. This was the, the Stone Cold Vince storyline of this asshole boss and this guy who was flicking him off and fucking kicking him in the gut and giving him stunners, we're always root for that guy, regardless of what he's positioned in. And that's, that's not the point I was bringing up, but I think it's pretty cool that these guys now have options. And yeah, they're going to make a little money, but I just don't see it happening before then without the popularity of, say, these new promotions and stuff. I always want the wrestler to make money. I do. I always want the wrestler to be safe. I also want them to make money. So if you can get it, get it. But at the level that it is now compared to, say, before, I'm really happy these guys are able to sustain and in a very healthier environment too. I I can tell you what's happening behind the scenes at New Japan. I can tell you what at Lucha Underground or ROH, but they seem less stressful than, say, what's happening in WWE. Would you agree with that?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm sure it is.
So the last topic we want to talk on is the inevitable in this, how Wrestlemania is shaping up. How do you see Wrestlemania shaping up, and say with the involvement with Sting, and say what they're trying to conjure up with The Undertaker and Bray Wyatt, and say the main event of the possibility of Brock staying and retaining, or Brock leaving and losing and Reigns winning? It's just this thing. You have 4 different things happening with this whole main event. It's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different options that are weighing in to where the future of the WWE and the product of Wrestlemania moves forward into the future. I'd definitely like to hear your thoughts on this.
I think this is shaping up to be a largely forgettable show that summarizes and epitomizes just how out of touch and off the mark the WWE is. It's just the ridiculousness of this company on so many different levels, the way I see it. Let's look at this first. You end the streak last year. just so that way Taker can come back again and wrestle this year. Why? For what point? The one reason he had to come back every year at WrestleMania was the streak. The streak is now gone. What purpose does he serve? Now you bring him back to feud him against a guy that he maybe should have wrestled last year in Bray Wyatt. Why? Because if Bray Wyatt beats The Undertaker, then that diminishes what Brock Lesnar accomplished the previous year, therefore making Taker's streak seem not as significant, therefore further diminishing one of the biggest stars you've ever had, one of the hugest WrestleMania attractions you've ever had. Whereas if you have Taker win, then what was the point of him ending the streak last year just to win again this year? What does that mean for Bray Wyatt, that one of your new top guys, so to speak, has lost back-to-back years at WrestleMania to older guys like John Cena and The Undertaker? You have Sting and The Undertaker under contract at the same point in time. If you're going to insist on Taker coming back to WrestleMania, you would think you would want to do the dream match that we've been talking about for over 15 damn years. But no, instead, God's got to get his Mania payout. The Breakfast Club's got to make sure that they take care of it. So we're getting Triple H versus Sting at WrestleMania, knowing goddamn good and well that this isn't the match that we want to see. Knowing goddamn good and well that this isn't the special attraction match. We've got a guy in Brock Lesnar who, once again, is in a position where we barely ever see him. When he does, it's of limited impact. And now we're putting him in a spot where he could be in charge of the main event of the most important show of the year, knowing that he might not be under contract past WrestleMania, facing a guy in Roman Reigns who probably, frankly, isn't ready for that spot, but really nobody was. They didn't have bothered to get anybody ready to win that 2015 Royal Rumble. Reigns was one of the best of the limited options that they had. So you have a babyface going into that show to take on the guy that dismantled Cena at SummerSlam, who ended the streak at WrestleMania, and the fans don't know if they want to get behind Roman Reigns. You're setting up to a Rusev versus John Cena match where we all know where this is going. Rusev's losing and Cena's going to reign supreme. I mean, what else do we really have? We have a Intercontinental title ladder match. I don't care how much this company tries to spot fest me into fooling me into thinking this is going to be good. This is stupid. You book your Intercontinental champion like shit. This is the best that you have for guys like Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler and so on and so forth. That's dumb. I just don't see how this show is going to be anything other than forgettable. You have the wrong guys in the wrong matches in the wrong spots on the card with bad build-up. Like, what the fuck are they doing with Rollins and Orton? Oh, we're going to go the slow build. No, you're going the bullshit build. It's bad. It's dumb. You don't sit there and do that crap, especially when you look at how Raw finished this week. It was so anticlimactic and so crappy, coming off of a forgettable Fastlane. That's the best they could come up with? Is Orton all of a sudden now can control himself and control his emotions? No. It's going to be...
You know, it's funny because in my last review of Raw, I'm actually undecided. Maybe you think differently. Maybe you could school me on something. Maybe you could, learn me something. But I really think that the fact that Randy Orton is holding back, quote unquote, I mean, I'm seeing through it. It's just a setup to get, the payoff is that he does get his WrestleMania match and he whoops up on Seth Rollins or what have you. But I'm thinking it's necessarily for the slow burn. You don't agree with the slow burn?
No, I don't, because Orton's already been gone for 4 damn months now. Why the hell do you need to do the slow burn? You slow burned it for 4 months because you had Orton miss time to go film movies.
Then where does he move on after that? I mean, like, okay, so he shows up Monday, he whoops his ass, but then what with Rollins and Orton?
No, he comes back Monday, he does the shit at the beginning, and then at the end of the show, he RKO's Rollins. And then you set up a program where you have them fight at WrestleMania. They're overthinking this shit. You had Rollins, you had Orton, you had a reason for them to have history and beef and an issue. You have WrestleMania coming up. You're going in that direction with the match. Why get cute with it? Why overthink it? Why? Just so that way we can get more 15 to 20 minute promo segments with Triple H and Stephanie, because God knows we don't already get enough of those.
God, he does know. And by the way, if y'all haven't seen his videos before, when he speaks of God, he speaks of Triple H. Because he is God. Yeah.
They know it, even if they don't want to acknowledge it. Although, if he is the ultimate creator of everything, especially when it comes to professional wrestling, you would think he could get himself a leather jacket that wasn't 3 sizes too short. Just
Hey, man, God got to show off them guns, man. If he's created the heavens and the earth, he got to have some fucking pecs. He got to have some fucking guns, right? I'm saying. I know if I was God, I would show him off.
You know what he should be working on creating? A sun.
Ooh, low blow, dude. What the fuck is Jim Ross to commentate this, dude? Jesus Christ.
He needs to worry about making a son. For all the shit the Breakfast Club does from an ego standpoint and protecting their spot standpoint, the one thing they don't do is make sons.
Yeah.
Like I even said Shawn Michaels made a son because I still wonder how his other kid's a fucking ginger. I'm just saying. Batista, daughters. Orton, I believe, just daughters, last time I checked. Cena, as far as I know, he hadn't made any kids, which makes you really wonder what the fuck's going on. But if he did, they're probably daughters.
Batista's daughter even has a sex tape, man, which is even crazier.
Yes.
So let me ask you this. So what do you think the most forgettable WrestleMania has ever been?
WrestleMania 9 would be the most forgettable, followed by WrestleMania, I'll go WrestleMania 11, WrestleMania 16, and then WrestleMania 27.
And that's from most forgettable to the least forgettable. Like, is there any?
It would be like a 5, but I mean WrestleMania 9 is still number 1 on the list. But WrestleMania 31 could be in that top 5. It could surpass 27 in its overall crap factor. Here's what's going to happen with 31. People get some what they claim to be decent matches, and that'll be enough to stem the tide. Maybe WWE throws you a freaking bone, and Ambrose or Ziggler wins the IC title in that ladder match. Okay, well, it's still stupid. It's still something you're going to forget. I mean, Triple H, Sting, whoop-de-doo. Wyatt Taker, whoop-de-doo. Reigns, Lesnar, whoop-de-doo. Cena, Rusev, whoop-de-doo. This is a whole lot of whoop-de-doo. You know, and even if some of the matches deliver, what are they really delivering? It's just spot fests that are going to fool us into thinking something's better than it really is.
Let me ask you this. Is this something, as long as I've been following your Off the Rope Show channel on YouTube, is to be insightful as you are, both on the wrestling tip and another on the sports tip, football notably, why aren't you either A, working in the WWE as with creative, or say working for Sports Illustrated or Bleacher Report, reporting and doing segments for them, special commentary for them? Like, have you tried to get a job at either one of the two or something? I mean, something. Have you ever tried?
As far as WWE, let's be honest, that would never happen because I've said too many bad things that I feel are the truth that I'm not going to back down from. Furthermore, the WWE and Vince McMahon especially are not going to want people like me involved that don't have a Hollywood writing background or are going to sit there and not toe the line. That's not me. That's not what I'm about. I'm never going to be about that. So, you know, being a creative writer for WWE is most certainly no dream job of mine. They'd have to pay me a lot of money in order to get me to do that, to get what I bring to the table.
Well, it would be a dream. It would be a dream for the fans, though. It would be a dream. I mean, like, say not even WWE. Have you ever considered just working as a creative at like an indie promotion or anything in that nature? Have you ever even decided, like, even tried or attempt to send an application or something? Talk to a fucking promoter.
I've considered, but I have to say the consideration hasn't been that strong. I've thought about it, but that's just a thought. That doesn't mean a whole lot. It hasn't created a whole lot of action. In terms of things like Sports Illustrated or Bleacher Report, I mean, I write for ProFootballSpot.com, but, you know, at the end of the day, what are they really, frankly? They're a newer site. We're growing. It's getting more of a following, and that's good over time. But yeah, in terms of the other ones like SI and Bleacher Report, a lot of times they want people with degrees, which I don't have a degree. It's also about networking too and knowing the right people and kissing the right ass, which again, networking isn't my biggest strength. Furthermore,
I can't tell that, honestly. I can't even tell your networking skills.
But it's about a lot lot of different things. I mean, it's about getting your name out there. It's about this. It's about that. So, you know, it is what it is. Like, I guess maybe I just feel like I have there's more of an appeal to me to try and just do my own thing and be that kind of independent contractor, if you will. Don't get me wrong, I would love to nothing more than be able to write full-time for a website and have that be how I made my living, do the videos, and that's it, not have to work a real job, not have to do any of that other bullshit. But until that happens, it is what it is.
And speaking of doing your own thing, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I want to thank you so much for doing this. Tell the people who are listening now, and say even your fans of your OTRS Central and Schlegdaddy TV, like maybe they don't know that you do other things, and who you're working with, because I didn't know you were working for this football, what is it called?
So
yeah, do your plugs.
The NFL, I write for a website called ProFootballSpot.com. I write about the Chicago Bears. You can type in Schlegdaddy TV on YouTube if you want my thoughts on the different prospects heading into this 2015 NFL draft. I'm doing a lot of draft-related videos over the next 2 months to come. I already have a bunch of content already up, some individual prospect profiles, mock drafts, what have you. Then, of course, obviously, there's OTRS Central on YouTube, and we already know what I do there. You make sure you follow me on social media, either twitter.com, it's at OTRS Central for the wrestling show, or it's PF_Schlegel for the football and other non-wrestling related topics. Make sure you give me a follow. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Make sure you send all of those. Well, I got some of the links, but send me the other links. Like send me an email to all that stuff so I can attach this to the the description box. And without further ado, that's definitely. Oh man, we made perfect time, because I was hoping we would stay within like the hour 30, hour 45 worth of conversation, say, versus the screw up at the beginning. But thank you so much for your time. This is a big deal for me. Not only to have you on again, but actually able to be able to interact with you. I mean, you're one of the coolest dudes ever, man. How over can I put you right now? Come on.
The only person that can put me over more than anybody else is me. I deserve all of it. No, it was my pleasure. It was my honor to do so. You take care of yourself, my man. We'll do this again sometime, all right?
Yeah, man. So for the one person who loves black women more than I do.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I do bid you farewell. And again, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you, man. Take it easy.
All right, take it easy.